Hello, fellow Open XML developers. This is Eric White. Today I am going to walk through how you can use PowerTools for Open XML to accept tracked revisions in a document and then subsequently process that document using the strongly typed object model of the Open XML SDK. As some of you might know, there are a couple of approaches that you can use to work with the markup in an Open XML document. You can use any XML processor to work with the markup in the individual parts in an Open XML document, or you can use the strongly typed object model of the Open XML SDK, and in that case you use classes that are named paragraph and run and text and so on. This is actually quite a bit more convenient in a lot of scenarios. However, there is one situation where it's not more convenient to use the strongly typed object model, and that's when you're writing certain kinds of transforms of OpenXML documents. The revision acceptor module in PowerTools for OpenXML uses linked XML, and this is because it uses a type of transform called a recursive pure functional transform, and as of right now it's a little bit difficult to write these types of transforms using the strongly typed object model of the Open XML SDK. I have plans to rectify this situation in the future, but as of right now, if you're writing types of transforms of one document to another, it's more convenient to use linked XML. So PowerTools for OpenXML is to a large extent written using linked XML. So we have two different types of APIs that we want to use to access and modify the markup in the individual parts in a document. I'm going to show you today how you can use PowerTools for OpenXML, which is written in linked XML, and then use the strongly typed object model to do your specific programming. First thing you need to do is get the latest version of PowerTools for OpenXML. Go to powertools.codeplex.com, click on the download tab, and get the most recent version. As of the recording of this screencast, the most recent version is version 3.1.04. You can put this wherever you like. However, if you are going to use the commandlets for PowerTools for OpenXML, in other words, if you're going to use the PowerShell commandlets for PowerTools for OpenXML, you'll want to put this in your Windows PowerShell directory, and then within that you'll put it in the modules directory. Let me show you how to do that. I'm going to go put this in c:\users/Eric/documents/Windows PowerShell/module. If you don't have the Windows PowerShell or the modules directory, you can create them ahead of time. I'll open the folder here. One note in passing is make sure that you're using PowerShell version 3.0 or later. We want to extract this into the OXPT directory from within the modules directory. So an easy way to do this is just rename this file to oxpt.zip, extract the files into OXPT, and if we look inside there, we see what we expect to see. Now, because this file has been downloaded from the web, it's more convenient to unblock all of these files. PowerShell is a great way to unblock these files, so an easy way to get going is to run PowerShell under ISE at this by typing that into the address bar of Windows Explorer, and that starts up a Windows PowerShell integrated scripting environment at that location. To unblock these files, we do dir *** recurse and pipe that into unblock file. We can exit here. Next, we need to build the OpenXML PowerTools library. We're going to want that to be built for us. So an easy way to do this is open up the OpenXML PowerTools examples solution, then click Build, Rebuild Solution. And it's all done. Everything succeeded in its build. We can close this solution now. Next thing we want to do is create a new project project. We'll create a Windows console project. I'm creating a Windows desktop console application. I'll put it in whatever folder I want to put it into. Call it whatever you want. You can create a directory for the solution or not as your requirements dictate. We need to add the references for the Open XML SDK. We'll find the Open XML SDK, presuming you have installed it. If you haven't, you'll need to install it ahead of time. It doesn't matter whether you have the open source version of the Open XML SDK or the official binary released version of the Open XML SDK. It's all the same at this point in time. So I'll add that. And I also need to add a reference to the Windows base assembly. A convenient way to work with PowerTools for OpenXML is to add an existing project to this solution. So if you installed it in the Windows PowerShell/modules directory, then you'll find the existing solution in the OXPT subdirectory, and it's named OpenXML PowerTools.cs proj. And we need to add a reference to that solution. So we click down here on the solution and tell it we want to add a reference to that project. We're ready to start coding. I'm going to want system.io in this project, and I'll want the usings for the Open XML SDK. I'll add a using for document format.openxml, document format.openxml.packaging, document format.openxml.word processing, and we need a using for the PowerTools for OpenXML. We'll add that fellow right there. I'm going to remove this namespace declaration right there, just so that we have one less level of indentation in the code that I'm showing in this screencast. Of course, you'll want to put your code in an appropriate namespace for your project. I often like to write little example programs where I have some source document. I then copy it to a destination document and then do my work on that destination document just so that I can run my code over and over as I continually make progress in writing my code. I'll set one file info to /test.docx. If the output file exists, I'll delete it and then copy the source to the output. Now let's write the PowerTools for OpenXML code that will accept tracked revisions. I'll new up a WML document passing in the full name of the source document. WML document is a class in PowerTools for OpenXML that encapsulates an OpenXML document. It's basically a thin wrapper over a byte array. So we're sucking the entire document into a byte array. Now, OpenXML documents are really not very big. It's a very reasonable approach just to pull in OpenXML documents as a byte array. In a lot of cases, it's more convenient to work with OpenXML documents as a byte array, and then we open them as appropriate using the OpenXML SDK, and I'll introduce that code and show it here shortly. Now I'll accept revisions in this document, and that's all we have to do. I create a new WML document, and I set it equal to revisionAcceptor.accept revisions, passing in the source WML document. I'm going to want to declare another WML document for the document after we've processed it with the Open XML SDK. This will be clear very shortly. We need to open this with the Open XML SDK, and the Open XML SDK doesn't take a byte array as one of its possible arguments, but it does take a stream. So an easy way to do this is we'll create a memory stream, write the byte array to the memory stream, and then we'll be able to open it using the Open XML SDK. I'll create a new memory stream using the constructor that takes no arguments, and I'm going to write the byte array into this memory stream. Now we can find that document byte array right here, and then we need to pass in the offset. We're going to start at 0, and we're going to pass the length of that document byte array also into this write method. These are the arguments that the write method of MemoryStream takes. Next thing we are ready to do is to open this using the Open XML SDK. Now we're going to want to probably open this with the options in the Open XML SDK that enable us to use the markup compatibility settings, the markup compatibility feature of the SDK. This takes care of processing of those markup compatibility elements in the markup. If you need information on how to process these, take a look at the screencast at this link, and it will explain all about markup compatibility and extensibility processing using the Open XML SDK. So I'll declare an open settings, and I'll call this constructor for it. And I'm going to set the markup compatibility process settings property of that object, and we need to pass in the process mode for this. And I'm going to tell it to process all parts, and it wants to know which file format version is applicable for our particular project. I'll tell it Office 2010. Let's add a line break there so that it's easier to see that code. And now I'm ready to open the MemoryStream for processing. I want a word processing document. I'll open the MemoryStream. I'll pass in true, indicating that I want to be able to modify this document, and I'll pass in the open settings. One small note here is that there is a MemoryStream constructor here that can take a byte array as an argument. We can see it here, this particular overload of that constructor. But one point about this is if we create a MemoryStream like this, the MemoryStream is not writable. And if the MemoryStream is not writable, we can't open up the document on that MemoryStream telling it that we want to modify that MemoryStream. Down here, we pass in true into that argument. So the solution is you create it with the default constructor and then write the byte array to the MemoryStream. And in that way, we have a writable MemoryStream. And therefore, we can open up the word processing document for modification. Let's do a simple operation to this document. Let's add a new paragraph to the end of the document. I'll new up a paragraph, I'll new up a run, and I'll new up a text element, and I'll tell it I want hello world to go into this new paragraph. We now want to add this paragraph to this document that we've opened. One point about Open XML is that the section properties for the last section in the document are a sibling to all of the paragraphs in the document. In other words, it's an element that follows the last paragraph in the document, and we don't want to add a new paragraph after the section properties. That's actually an invalid Open XML document. I'll create a document with tracked revisions so that you can see exactly what I mean by this. I'll go to the directory where I want to create this document. I'll start up a PowerShell integrated scripting environment. I'll import the module OXPT. On my development machine, I of course always have this module imported using my profile PowerShell script. I can now create a new docx. This is a commandlet in PowerTools for OpenXML that enables me to create new documents with all kinds of characteristics and attributes. I'll call it test.docx. I'll tell it I want it with revision tracking, and I'm going to tell it to load and save using Word. I'm going to see the markup exactly as Word would write this document. Let's take a look at the markup using the Chrome OOXML tools. This is a really awesome and useful extension to Chrome that enables you to drag and drop OpenXML files onto Chrome and then examine the markup in all the parts in that file. Here's our test.docx that I just created using the new docx commandlet. I'll drag that on to Chrome while I have this OOXML tools extension enabled. Let's look at the markup in the main document part, and let's go to the end of the document, and we can see here that the section properties are following the last paragraph that is in the body element. And I want to add our new paragraph right after this paragraph right here. In order to add our new paragraph after the existing last paragraph of the document, I'm going to write a little query to get that last paragraph. I'll tell it I want to go into the main document part, go to the document element, go to the body element, and select elements, and select the paragraph elements. So this is a parameterized method on the Open XML element. Enables me to get the last paragraph element of all of the child elements of the body element. And I'll tell it I want the last one of those. This is standard link programming. I want to insert our new paragraph after this last paragraph. I'll type in the statement last paragraph dot insert after self, the new paragraph. Now when we drop out of this using statement for using the Open XML SDK, I want to save this document. So an easy way to write the code is I'll now set this after processing WML document equal to a new WML document. I need to pass in a file name into this constructor, so I'll put in dest.fullname as the file name, and I'll pass in the byte array, and so I can take the MemoryStream and use the toArray method to get the byte array of the contents of that MemoryStream. And I can now just call the save method, and that will save that document out. So at this point in time, we already have our existing test.docx. So when I run this, it'll build and run and exit. When I go back to Explorer, I can see our out.docx. And if I open that in Word, I can see our hello world that has been added after the existing contents of this document. And further, I can see that all of the tracked revisions in this document have been accepted. Just for the sake of curiosity, I'll open up the source document and we can see that there are tracked revisions in this file. So there you have it. This is the idiom that you want to use when you are using the PowerTools for OpenXML in conjunction with the strongly typed object model of the OpenXML SDK. Thanks for watching this video. See you in the next video.